Hi, I'm Alicia and welcome to the Mintay Papers YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing a set of 9 cards, and these are generic type cards. They could be birthday cards or any occasion. We're going to be making our own flowers, and we're going to be using Mintay's beautiful Blissful Times collection, the 6x8 paper pad, the paper die cuts, the sticker sheet, and we're also using some clock chippies with the Mintay chalk paint in the Rosebud colour. So let's get started and get straight into our tutorial. So here we are with the 6x8 paper pad for Blissful Times by Mintay, and we need to go through and choose 9 of our favourite pages. We're cutting these to 4 inches, and we're keeping the little scrap because we're going to use that in the design of our card. Our next step is to take a 12x12 piece of white cardstock. We're going to need 9 of these, and we are going to cut our 12x12 white cardstock pieces to 8.5 by 8.25. So just go through and cut all of your 9 pieces of cardstock to 8.5 by 8.25. Once you have done that, fold them in half on the 8.5 inch side. Now we are going to glue our beautiful papers from the Mintay Blissful Times 6x8 paper pad onto the front of our cards, and this will be our first layer. So we're just gluing all of those on. Our next step is to take our Mintay Kreativa chalkboard paint, and we're going to give that a little mix up so that it's all nice and, not too thick, not too runny. And we're just going to take a little foam brush and paint the edges of our cards. So we left that lovely white border around our cards because we cut to 8.5 by 8.25. And now we're just painting that border with the Kreativa paint to give that pretty pink finish on our cards. Our next step is to take our little strips here that were our scraps before. Choose the side that you want for your scraps. I'm just using some recycled cardboard to put on the back of my scrap, or you can use some foam mounting tape instead of the recycled cardboard. And then again, I'm going to go through and just paint the edges of each of those little scraps with my Mintay Kreativa chalk paint. And this adds a lovely shabby chic pink soft edge to our papers. Next, I'm going through and choosing which papers go nicely together with my cards, and I'm gluing those onto the left-hand side of my cards. So I'm choosing papers that have contrast. So if you can see there, the blue one, I've contrasted that with the white sort of speckledy page. So I'm really looking for a contrast in colour and pattern so that the papers stand out nicely. Our next step is to prepare for our little clocks that we're going to paint. So you might like to put a board down for this so that you can paint freely without getting too much mess on your work space surface. I'm going through and painting each one of those clocks with the same Rosebud Kreativa chalk paint, and then I'll leave that to dry. Now our cards are looking really beautiful so far. We've got a really good base start for our cards. I'm looking now for some papers that I can use on the inside of my card. So I'm just going through and finding those papers. So I've got all of these papers ready now. I will need 9 because we're making 9 cards. And I'm going to trim these down so that they fit perfectly on the inside of the card. I'm trimming them down to 4 inches. Once they are all trimmed down, it's time to glue them into the inside of the card. So I'm just going to pop all of those on the inside now. Now from my 12 by 12 papers, my 12 by 12 cardstock that I cut the base card from, I have a little strip that's going to be able to work for the inside. So I've got 7 5/8 there on my little strip, and then I'm going to glue that little strip into the inside of the card so that I've got a lovely space for writing a message. And you know, that was just going to be a wasted piece of cardstock anyway, so I might as well pop them on the inside of my cards. Now I'm going to pop out all of these clocks that we're going to use. This is the reason we're making 9 cards, because there's 9 clocks per chippy. I'm also going to be creating my own flowers for these cards, and I'm making them out of foamerine. So it's going to take me a while because making your own flowers is quite time consuming, but it's very cost effective, and you also have a great sense of achievement when you're finished. You can use any die to create flowers. I'm just running the foamerine through the die cutting machine, and you can do about 3 pages at once. There's different types of foamerine. Some you need an iron for and others you don't. The one that I'm using today is the one that requires an iron. And I'm just pulling all those little petals apart and sorting them into sizes, because I think there's 5 layers. I'm not sure if it's 4 or 5 layers to these flowers. I pop them onto my iron and I just let them shrink a little bit on the iron. And then what I'm going to do is I will use a center for my flowers. Just poke a little hole in the middle and then put the center of the flower through each one of those petals, and doing them in order from the smallest through to the biggest. And there's your flower. But what I want to do with these flowers today is I want to actually create pink flowers, because I felt like pink would be a nicer color to match in with my cards. So I'm actually going to use the Mintay Creativa chalk paint to paint all of the petals. Now, there's no real right or wrong way to do this. It's completely up to you as to how you want to paint your petals, whether you want to dip them in or whether you want to use a foam brush. I found that the foam brush was probably quicker and easier. So I went ahead and painted all of my flower petals. The other way you can do it too is you can do all of the iron shrinking first and then paint second. So on these flowers I'm painting them after I have shrunk them on the iron. So I'm not really sure which is the best way to do it, whether you shrink them first and paint them second, or paint them first and shrink them second. I think either way is okay. It's probably what suits you the best. This is a time-consuming project. Creating your own flowers isn't done in a quick, it's not quick, okay? It takes time, but it's quite relaxing. If you are not in a rush, it is very relaxing. It's a bit like fussy cutting. If you are in a rush and you just want a quick flower, it can be a little frustrating. You have to sort of relax, take your time, enjoy the process. Here I'm sorting all of the petals into sizes so that I can put them together in their right sizes. I'm going to be using pearls in the center of my flowers, I've decided, instead of a stamen, because I really love pearls and I just think it'll be softer and prettier. So now I'm just going through the process of gluing the petals one at a time, starting with the smallest and then working my way up size by size, or you can start with the biggest and work your way down size by size, whatever suits you. Each level of petals will need to be glued separately. So you can see I have made some progress. I am getting there with my petals. There's another way that you could possibly do this as well, and that is putting them all in size and then building them all in a bulk way. So I started with adding the pearl to the center of all of the small flowers and then building from there. So then I added the pearl and the little flower into the second sized flower, did all of those. Then I added all the third sized flowers and so on. So it kind of like a bulk way of doing it, which I think was a little bit quicker. I wanted 2 flowers for each of my cards, so that means that I had to create 18 flowers altogether, which is a lot of flowers to make. And your hands get very, very dirty. But here are all of the flowers and they're looking so pretty. You can see here my flower and my chipboard is dry and my cards are ready. So I can start to begin to assemble my cards now. I've got my elements sorted. I'm really happy with my pretty flowers. I think the chalk paint worked really well on the Foameran material, and I like the pearl. I'm thinking that everything here is good to go and we're ready to start building our cards. So to begin with, I will be gluing my clocks onto my card, and they are in the top half of the card, about 2 centimeters down, 2 finger spaces down from the very top of the card, because I don't want it to be smack bang in the middle. I don't want to get it to be too heavy down the bottom. So there are 2 finger spaces from the very top of the card. Okay. And we're just going through and doing all of those because we're making a bulk set of cards, so we're going to be doing it in bulk. now we're going to open up our packet of paper die cuts from Mintay Blissful Times. We're going to choose 2 flowers. I actually made, when I was cutting my flowers, I actually made a larger flower and a smaller flower. So I've got the 2 different size flowers. I've got this lovely pink crinkled ribbon that I'm going to tie into bows. I'm going to have 2 bows, or 1 bow for each card. It's up to you as to whether you want to have 1 bow or 2 bows. I'm cutting a little bit of my favorite dangly lace that I'm going to add to the ribbon as well. I only need like a little bit of that, probably only about 3 to 4 centimeters of lace. Then I'm going to be choosing a paper die cut, and I'm going to use some recycled cardboard on the back of my paper die cut to give it a little bit more height on my card. I'm looking for, to begin with, the most easy patterns of all, which are just large floral clusters, because they always look amazing. So I'm going through and picking quite large pieces. Here I've chosen a macrame wall hanging to add onto this card for something a little bit different. It's quite a large die cut. So going through onto my next set of cards, this time I have a teepee, a flower and the same wall hanging. Just going through and gluing those on to my clock in the center. My next set of cards, a chair, another wall hanging or 2. Let's glue those on. Beautiful. I'm going to be adding more paper die cuts to these cards, so I'm not too stressed about the fact that there's a lot of space left. I've cut some cheesecloth because I will also add cheesecloth onto the cards. So now I am choosing a layer of cheesecloth and then another paper die cut to pop on top of the first layer. The cheesecloth or the butter muslin just softens the card, gives it that shabby chic feel. And the picture on top, or the paper die cut on top, adds more to the design. The floral on the top is very pretty. Each card will have 2 flowers. So now I'm coming back to these cards. I'm going to add my next layer of cheesecloth, and then I'm going to choose a second paper die cut to add to the top of the cards. And now we are just layering up those paper die cuts. There's no right or wrong way to how you want to position your paper die cuts, or which ones that you would like to use and pair together. This is part of the creative process, so just enjoy. I like to use a floral cluster or a flower on each one and then team that up with some other type of illustration. Flowers for me are the easiest to use. So we're getting to the end of the flowers, the paper die cuts now. We're going to glue on our lace, our ribbon and our flowers onto the bottom left hand part of our card. I've switched to a hot glue gun for this so that my flowers are secure and everything is glued down securely and quickly and easily. You don't have to use a hot glue gun, it's up to you. So just going through and doing a layer of lace, a layer of ribbon, and then our pretty flowers. Lace and our ribbon and our flowers, and just continuing on with that. I like to use up as many little paper die cuts as I can, so because I've still got some small little things left, I'm going to add some more paper die cuts onto my cards. So this is now we're looking at 3 paper die cuts per card. Obviously there's no rules as to how many paper die cuts you want to use. I think the more die cuts, the prettier it looks, but that's just my personal opinion. Sometimes it can just take a little bit of time to figure out where to put them. By adding the recycled cardboard to the back, we create a more dimensional card. And any extra little bits and pieces can be added in around those. Last of all, now I'm going to use some sentiments from the Blissful Time sticker sheet, and these have very generic sentiments: happiness, best wishes, celebrations, so that these cards can be quite generic and used for a variety of occasions. So just going through and choosing a sticker sentiment for each of the 9 cards. And that is the completion of our tutorial for a set of 9 cards using Mintay's Blissful Times collection, the 6x8 paper pad, the paper die cuts and the sticker sheet, and the Mintay Chippies clocks with the Mintay Kreativa paint in Rosebud. We made our own flowers and we made a set of beautiful 9 cards. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you are subscribed to the Mintay Papers YouTube channel, and I hope you have a lovely crafty day.